Students Brenna Leary and Katerina Baduk interviewed Dave Stangis, the Vice President of Corporate Responsibility and Chief Sustainability Officer at Campbell Soup Company.
So, first of all, I guess the most general question that we could ask is, how do you define CSR?
I've defined it very broadly inside of Campbell and overtly as a set of tools that drives business value, that actually drives retention, drives attracting the best talent, drives cost reduction, innovation, creativity, and eventually the last part of my definition that I share with the leadership team and the board is competitive advantage. Now it's the things we know as, a strong role in the community, really engaged but productive employees, managing resources in the right way, but it's specifically not the kind of things people bring to the table, right? Like it's not just cleaning up the community or minimizing waste or doing less harm. It's all about driving those key business values. And it's how we use it, actually share it on a slide inside Campbell.
Sure. So to build off of that, so why is it important for businesses to utilize the tools that CSR gives them? Why does it make for good business at the end of the day?
I really do feel like it's assets or money left on the table if not used. I think that the people that are leading CSR and sustainability at companies are delivering exactly what I just described, right? They are reducing costs, they are better managing inputs, they're building stronger supply chains, they're setting higher expectations for their suppliers, they're building better relationships with their customers. They're lowering their resource use for long term, so taking some risk out of the system and frankly minimizing long-term business risk. And if you do all of those things and do nothing with them, right, it's like looking at the center of the table with a big bags of money on it. And I just think it's that company's own peril to ignore that. And I think they need to look at it, try to monetize it, try to factor it in.
But then would you say that there are any trade-offs to CSR sustainability initiatives, or how do you kind of balance, the monetary value of that versus some of the trade-offs that it may have?
I think that where the trade-offs come in is where the initiatives aren't strategic, right? So there are a lot of things that people have in their minds when you or I say CSR or sustainability. And if they're not looked at through the lens of, what does the company do better than anybody else? What does it really need to achieve as part of its business or its role in society? And how can it measure it and show value to board of directors or the CFO? Those things they should be doing. Things that they can't do that, things that don't pass that test, as good as they are, they probably shouldn't do them. And I mean, it can be as broad as, we have a focus at Campbell around, healthy communities, right? And nutrition, access to healthy foods and nutrition education and building sustainable food systems. We're a food company. That doesn't mean that a bunch of employees that get together and want to volunteer at an animal shelter don't get to volunteer at an animal shelter, because I need to be able to describe that the value those employees get, the productivity and the engagement they bring, and the fact that they're better employees and they like the company better. So there are things that you might think, but we're not going to spend our whole day, everybody's day in and day out, on animals, right, as a food company. So it goes to being very strategic and focused about where you put your bets, but also understanding how to translate things that may not sound like they fit right away.
Sure. So what would you say, if you could narrow it down to one thing in the CSR space, what is it that Campbell's does better than either other places that you've worked at or just among competitors? What makes Campbell's stand out?
The thing that makes Campbell's stand out is that its ability to bring real food, good real food, raised and grown and prepared in the right way to the most people possible. So what we have is a really good portfolio, which any business has to look at. What do they actually make? Ours is anchored in whole grains and vegetables, right? So we have this very good base to start, and we've optimized it over years through mergers and acquisitions like Plum Organics and Bolthouse Farms and Garden Fresh Gourmet. And then trying to go back to the real food roots of it, right? How can we make it more real? How can we make people understand or actually get it to where it's a cleaner label and deliver that at an accessible price that everybody can afford? So it's not just the high-end shopper or the the farmer's market. That's the unique piece that we can deliver as a company. And if we can turn that into partnerships and leverage and scale those opportunities, that's where we'll have the biggest benefit.
And so it sounds like CSR really touches many aspects of the business. Do you sort of see it as, separate from the rest of the operations, or is it integrated within, operations, marketing, like all the different departments?
Yeah, the goal is that it's integrated into every position. I would challenge you, it would be almost kind of a fun test for you to give me a business function and me not to be able to tell you how CSR is integrated, right? It would be my job to tell you, to answer that question across the board, whether it's a P&L, right, a business function, a business division. At Campbell, we have 3 business divisions and then a service division, or the function, right, legal, HR, marketing, finance.
Would you say it needs to be in every single function?
Absolutely. No question. If you find one that isn't, then there's work to be done. Now, clearly, it depends on how you're if you're describing it as a strategic business imperative, leveraging all these tools we're talking about, the new millennial trends, what's happening in the world, what's happening in the environment, what's happening in regulatory schemes around the world, voluntary schemes, then yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Sure. So, say you go into a company and you say, I'm going to do CSR. And yes, you want to go and sort of leverage all these different spaces within the company, but where do you start? Does it depend on the company and the way that functions, or is there sort of good go-to spaces to begin with?
A little bit of both. It clearly starts on where you are. I mean, I give the same advice to everybody that a lot of people are, on day one, they're worried about what their next job is. And that's 180 degrees the wrong thing to do, right? On day one, you should be worried about what this job is. I just moved one of my people from a CSR role into procurement because we need more work in procurement. We need more capability to deliver on this real food promise. And her job is to be the best procurement person in the company, right? Even though she has no procurement expertise, that's what she needs to do to be successful. The rest of it will come, but clearly there are places to go in different companies to get the most leverage. If it's a large manufacturer, could be a small, geographically focused, or it could be global. Clearly, where materials flow through the company is a great place to look. Where do you buy things? Where do you process things? Where do you deal with waste and resources? If you're a kind of an intellectual capital company, a large accounting firm or a consulting firm, a KPMG, PwC, you go to where the people flow, right? You're going to where to get the best people, get them focused in the right way. How do you manage the influx and outflux of people? And how can you optimize that? Each company's got a flow, and you can take a look at the material flow or the kind of idea flow to intersect.
So as students are sort of choosing their career paths and thinking what areas they want to go into, what if they're not going directly into CSR roles, or someone wants to be in accounting but they care about these issues? How do you recommend that they incorporate that within their career?
I think that's probably where most will go, right? I mean, the vast majority are going to go where they have the skill and the interest, but they can pick companies or organizations or agencies or nonprofits that have a culture or a value set that they admire, or they feel like they have a fit. I would love to have more of our accounting and finance people leveraging the tools we're talking about here, right? So I think there's a way to live a CSR value or sustainability value no matter what job you're in, right? And clearly in the kind of sections that we talked about before, there's clearly legal people working. They may not even realize it, but they're managing marketing claims, and they might be managing the reputation, clearly working on CSR. Procurement, materials, manufacturing, all over. We would love to find ways to better account and to better manage ROI. Right? There's a huge opportunity for accountants and finance people in this space. So there's always ways to get it done.
Shifting gears a little bit, what is it about CSR or sustainability or the work that you're doing that makes it so worthwhile? Because it's not easy work. So what is it that connects to you as an individual that makes you want to spend all of your time and your effort doing these sorts of things?
The short answer is I really don't know, but It does all come down to human nature and psychology. I mean, I think that you have to leverage what you know and love. Everybody knows and loves something different. When they have the chance to read something on their own, they may go to a certain subject or to a certain thing. If they have the ability to kind of spend their own free intellectual time, they go into an area. But going in those areas, which for me are kind of business and science and technology, and then trying to drive change. I think that part of what I'm an operations person, and I think that I see opportunity for improvement in a lot of systems, opportunity to do better, opportunity to communicate more, and opportunity to get more value. And my brain just goes to those areas. So it's a perfect fit for me. There's no doubt about it. It can be frustrating, but my advice would be to pick the thing that you really enjoy. If somebody really loves accounting or really loves the foundation, grant making work, they're going to find things they want to improve. And that's where they should spend their time. That's where they're going to have the most value. And they'll grow from there.
And how did you get into CSR? You said you're an operations person.
Yeah, my background is science, if you haven't figured out by now. It's chemistry and biology, and it was what came easy to me, and I enjoyed it. And my first couple jobs were jobs that required much more chemistry than I had ever taken. And I liked those jobs. One was at Ford Motor Company, one was at a local environmental lab that analyzed things, and the feedback from both those companies were, you need more chemistry. And I said, I like the job, I'll go get more chemistry. And one thing led to another. I followed up on things that I liked doing in the marketplace, and I liked things that I enjoyed. Science I enjoyed. My master's degree was in science. But it was all about trying to drive change in business. I just enjoyed it. Right out of my master's degree, I went and got my MBA. Right out of my MBA, I applied to law school because I thought, I'm doing this environmental stuff now, because I was working and going to school at the same time. Law would be good, right? I should know a lot about that. I was kind of a fake practicing lawyer. I should probably actually go to law school. I didn't. I got a job in a different location, and it took me off the educational track, the formal educational track. But one thing led to another. I've never really paid any attention to what I was going to do next, because there's so much to do in the job I had, and the next thing just came along. I think that one of the challenges that a lot of people have is they're focused on what's next, and they kind of miss the opportunity they have to make change in the job they're in.
As you reflect on your career, are there specific moments that stick out to you as sort of victories that say, yes, I'm doing work that matters and work that is fulfilling and is making change in a greater way?
That's an interesting question. I would say, if listening to the question and then trying to think about it, the places where I've felt that, where I've had that feeling, is when multiple stakeholders, I don't like the term, but people that didn't have the same interest all won, all felt like they won, right? So there were times in my career where I had to work at Intel, where we were expanding into new locations here in Hudson, Massachusetts, or in Costa Rica, or in other places where we were going to a place, greenfield or new, where they didn't know who was coming to town, and they were kind of afraid of the company coming to town, afraid of their water, afraid of their waste, and but finding a way to talk to the people and listen to the people and have them be excited about who was coming and have it be a win for the company. And we've done several things at Campbell around challenging things around animal welfare, around packaging, around ingredients that really turned out to be a win for both us as a company and a win for society.
What's one of the biggest challenges then, would you say, in CSR, maybe overall, and also where CSR is now?
I think, overall, the biggest challenges has been kind of pushing the agenda fast enough, because almost everybody that wants to do CSR or sustainability, I have never met a person on the planet that is doing this work that thinks it's going faster than it should, right? Everybody, universal, like it's not going fast enough. That is the thing, and I think, all of the tools and kind of tips and tricks we've been talking about are tools to make it move faster, but it still will never go as fast as somebody wants it. We see things, and people that come to the CSR and sustainability table see things as so common sense that it's frustrating to us that they don't move faster. I think in the future, these words, CSR and sustainability, just have to go away, right? I think they are part of the reason things move so slow. It's part of the reason that you asked the question about, is it business or is it something else? If there was only one choice, it's about better business, it's about a better society, it wouldn't be something else. It would only be one thing. And I think that's what's going to have to happen to accelerate it. And I think it's happening. I think you can see it. Some companies are coming, they're being born, whether it's B Corps or other small companies are just starting with that single mission. It's not two different things. It is how we come to market.
Are you hopeful when you think about the future of business in terms of sustainability and CSR?
I am hopeful. I tell people that the secret to happiness is low expectations, but I am an eternal optimist because I do think that it takes much longer than I think. But I also think the human race is very ingenious, but they also need a lot of pressure, and I don't think they get pressured enough. I think things like big resource things that we're talking about, energy and water and waste and food, feeding people. I don't think people feel the pressure enough. I think if we were able to artificially create the pressure, we'd be amazed at what the human race could come up with in terms of solutions.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to students, business students specifically, like one key takeaway to keep in mind as they're in school and going into their careers?
Can I give two?
Sure.
One is understand the business much more than you think you understand the business. I almost universally in speaking to MBAs and business students, they're great on generalities. They kind of understand what the challenges are by sector, right? They understand kind of the big trends that might be affecting a sector. But I think they really, really, really need to know that business. They have to act or live into knowing that business better than anybody else. I mean, really, especially in CSR or sustainability, because it touches every part of the business. And then the other thing I think is it's a continual learning thing. I think if you feel like you're done at some point, or if you feel like I kind of have what I need to have, you've lost already, right? I think it's a continually learning more, but it really is about, if you're interested in a sector, I think you have to really go into it hoping to know more than every single person in that sector, which sounds completely daunting and overwhelming and unbelievable, but I think that's how you have to approach it, right? If you're going to try to convince 20,000, 100,000 people to do something different, you got to know what they're doing better than they do, and that's hard.
So those were all of our questions, but do you have any sort of final words or messages that you would like to leave with our first-year students?
One, I think that oftentimes you'll go through an entire undergraduate education and a graduate education focused on business, and you'll study all kinds of great things and all kinds of case studies of these amazing little projects, and they all worked. I think if you can search out some projects that didn't work and try to understand why they didn't work, you're going to learn actually 10 times more than studying the ones that worked. Because that's really, understanding why things don't happen, a lot more important than understanding why they did happen.
Perfect. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
you're welcome.
So much.